Royals 2014, here is mine, I'll be your chair. On the motion of this House believes that households with an income above the national average shouldn't be able to access the right to free education. I'd like to invite the Prime Minister to start his debate.
Madam Chair, ladies and gentlemen, so today we as the Malaysian government, we would like to we believe that the household with an income above the national average should not be able to access to the rights to the free education. So what do we mean by the free education? So today is that we think that the Malaysian government right now is providing free education in terms of we don't need them to the national school, they don't need them to pay for the fees, and then they will get the free textbooks and everything. So right now, what we want to do that we think that because right now so right now we think that there is a problem here is that because the Malaysian government, we are still a developing country, we don't have enough resources, we have limited resources to cater to this kind of for the education, and we believe that education is a very important factor in develop the country to move towards to the developed country. So right now, we believe that right now, because under the status quo is that there are still a certain group of people, the poor people that don't have, because right now the limited resources, and right now, so limited resources. So right now, if the rich people who can afford to pay for their education, they still compete with those poor people who really need the education in order to step up, to get up from their vicious cycle, the poor cycle that they don't want to forever to stay in the kampung, so in the villages, and then with a poor status, economic status, and then so we think that it's probably harmful. So alright,
Okay, ma'am, there's two things, ma'am. Because we talk about limited resources, you must be aware that those countries actually apply free education across all countries, ma'am. That's one thing. And second of all, when we talk about rich people, ma'am, not everybody, not all households with an income above the national average are actually rich, ma'am.
Alright, but what we think right now here is that we think that the people with the above average, the income, they have the ability, they are capable to pay for the education. We are not denying for the rich people to go to the national school, which their fees is always cheaper than the private institution. So they still have the right to go to a school, but just that they need to pay for the fees, which is we think that it's not a really great burden to them. So compared to those poor people who don't even have the chance, and they don't even able to pay for the educations in order to get out of their vicious cycle. So right now, what we want to do is that we want to have we as a side of the government, we want to reduce the income tax, the percentage of the income tax that the above average families to pay. So it's about 1 to 2% of the income tax. So it indirectly is as an incentive for them. It is justified because indirectly we reduce the amount of income tax they need to pay. So it's trade-off. So what we want to do today is that we have to start the government. What we want today is that we want to maximize the free education for those who really need it and deserve it. So moving on to my first point is that we think that it's justified for us to take away the rights, not really take away, so take away the rights of the rich people to have the access to free education, because we think that right now we are not directly depriving all their rights. Indirectly, we have some kind of compensations in return that they can reduce the the percentage of the income tax that they need to pay for the government. So at least they still have some more money to like pay for the education for their children. So yeah.
How is it compared to the free education?
So income tax, like the free education, is the source of the government to like pay for the. It's the source of the government, the revenue for the government to pay for the free education for the citizens. So this is how it's directly linked to the, yeah. So sit down, I will take a two. So right now, why is it justified? Because we think that it's the amount that they give to the, because the rich people that already have the ability to pay for the educations, and then we think that we want to do is that we want to like, because we are right now it's the developing country, we want the country to like move on to develop. If the number of people in the country are still like illiterate, so like the illiteracy rate is still very low, then the country will never grow. And then even if the rich people in the country, because they still like will still suffer from certain circumstances, like if the economy of the country is not that good, so the rich people will be affected also. So right now, what we want to do is that we think that through our paradigm is also bring some benefits to the poor or to the rich people also, because when the rich people that pay for the fees to the national school, so indirectly the government, the school will have more money to like improve their facilities to improve their facilities, and then to like to hire the more higher qualified teachers to teach their students. So all right. So we as a side of the government, we think that through our paradigm is a better way, because right now the limited resources. So right now what we want to do is that we want to maximize the number of people who can access to the education, which we think that is a basic right of the citizens, and then it's a way that for moving the country to develop the country, from moving from the developing country to a developed country. Yeah. So we as a side of the government, we are proud to propose.
Yeah. Alright, thank the Prime Minister for his speech. We'll put up the case on the side of opposition, like a vice leader.
Mr. Speaker, we believe that free education is for all and not by discriminating for the people who have higher income or low income. And in this context, income above national average, Mr. Speaker. Now, before I move on, let's see how the government's case is set up. They talk to us about how free education is needed for secondary schools, like I've heard from the first speaker. And from her status quo is saying that the developing countries have limited resources, and that's why they are the justification for why they are actually discriminating people who have income above national average and vice versa. And also, they say that they want to propagate the rights of poor people and actually leaving the right of these people, this other group of people who they mentioned rich people. Mr. Speaker, I want to stress out that they never prove to us how income above national average is actually rich and can buy everything in the world, Mr. Speaker. And before I move on to some couple of rebuttals, the question that the government side should answer is that, first of all, they have to prove to us that how by implementing this will not demotivate people to go for education, because we know that education is costly. And second, they have to prove to us how these people who have income higher than national income don't deserve the right of free education like any other citizen who pay taxes, who actually contribute to the country. And third of all, what is the urgency or the dire need of the situation? The problem that they come to us is that poor people need for education because they see that education is important. We know that. But what about these people who have, they say that these people who are rich, but these people will also have other things to cater in their household. I will explain later in my arguments. And fourth question is that the characterization of income that they talked about is that the people who have income above national average is rich people. And I think this is a wrong characterization, because we see that people who have income above average, as well, we know average, above average is slightly above average, and we don't know if they can actually buy a BMW for every kid that this household has. And next is the harms. Our bench will explain to you the harms of being discriminative towards the citizens of the country, and you're giving the rights for these people to have free education and not giving these other party rights to education. No, sit down. And I want you to prove to us also how that these average people who have income above average, national average, can actually support themselves, which will be further explained in my arguments. And lastly, what will happen to these people, the responses to these people who have higher income above national average with this implementation of this model that they bring up. Now before that, I move to some rebuttals. Yes?
So the case in which speech mentioned that this positive discrimination will give benefit towards the school itself. So what's wrong with that?
Thank you. You're saying that you give positive discrimination, but what about these people? You're saying that you're being a good government, but good government caters to the problem of all people and not just being discriminated towards one people and not the other. And when you mention about these people can actually cater their problems, they can afford their life, but how can you really how can you really make sure that these people can actually cater the household problem of education? I will explain to you later in my arguments. But before that, some rebuttals. They talk to us about, okay, first of all, we acknowledge that poor people need free education. But we are saying that, but we're not dismissing the fact of this other party also need free education, the party of people who have higher income above national average, Mr. Speaker. Now, another thing is about the resource matter. I understand why they want to bring this matter. It's because they want to bring this model is because of the limited resources that they mentioned. But when you talked about secondary education, I think there's no problem about the resource method. It's not a really big problem when you say that you want to give free education for all the secondary students or schools, Madam Speaker. Now move on to, before that, how is it justifiable for you to take away the rights of people that you are so-called rich when you don't really characterize these rich people in your speech, in the first speaker's speech? And now I'm going on to my first arguments, which is the rights and equality. I'm going to explain to you in a few levels. Level number one, I'm going to talk to you about the stakeholders. What is the rights of these stakeholders, which are the people who have income above national average and also people who have income lower, Mr. Speaker. Like I mentioned to you before, I talked to you how this free education is for all, especially when you guys, the Prime Minister characterized education is in secondary education. And so these stakeholders, when these people have income above national average, they also have other things to pay, like taxes, utilities, bills, and also about the health. What if these people, some families also have more mouths to feed than some people who are poor, Madam Speaker? So how is it justifiable for you to actually discriminate them and saying that it's a positive discrimination, Mr. Speaker? And for these people who have income above national average, they can always have all the luxuries in the world, like saying that these people are rich and whatnot, Mr. Speaker. I think this is wrong and being discriminated. You're placing another burden for a part of the citizen, while you're saying you want to cater one problem and actually dismiss another party's problem. So this is not right, as we are trying to bring to the floor today, Madam Speaker. Now, we see that it is really unfair to being discriminative just because we want to cater one problem. We see that it's a mismatched solution, because you want to be a good government, but that's not the right way. If you want to give free education, give it to all and not being discriminated. I've talked to you, another level is about discrimination. How a good government should not be discriminated by dismissing one part, because we know that it will further inflict or rises harms, which will be later explained in my second speaker. And if you want to give free education, you have to give it to all, or one party will actually rises and be because they are dissatisfied with this implementation. We said if you want to settle a problem, you should be more open and open-minded and resolve this problem to cater all the problems like a good government would. Okay, and what I've talked to you today is that I've talked to you how the government should not be discriminative and how they have to prove to us how these rich people can actually cater for themselves. Because you're taking away the rights of people to have free education, and that's why we say we support free education for all.
Here, the speaker spoke for 7 minutes. Alright, I think there's a competition for speech. And it seems like we have a bell choir at the end of each speech. Maybe we will have to get to one mobile phone with the debate keeper. So one of the debate keepers, so that doesn't disrupt the speaker so much. Alright, let me keep Prime Minister.
Hey. Madam Chair, I stand right here and I have 2 points to be brought across. That is, firstly, we want a better flow of what? A better justification of equality and a little bit about positive discrimination, and also a better flow to the financial situation of the government and transparency. And but before that, let me go to some rebuttals to the opposition point. And the opposition talked about rights and equality, right? She said that equality means that the government has to give free education to all people, those who are poor, those who are richer. And I will touch a little bit on what we want to define equality as. But you see, she said that middle income have bills to be paid, and they are also not rich. We didn't say that. We consent to the point that people who are above average national income also includes those who are about middle income, but many of them still send their children to a national school, but they can definitely afford to pay a little bit more. We're not saying that the fees for school, secondary school or primary school is thousands of ringgit. I mean, if you go to national school, it's relatively still very affordable. And what we're saying, we want a better mechanism for, please sit down, where the poor people don't have to pay much anymore. And some, maybe it's not felt here in KL or something, but back in rural area, it's really felt when they have to pay even 100 or 200 for school fees. So we're saying that the people who are middle income, there will not be a problem for them to pay a little bit more when it comes to school fees. And when in terms of middle income people have bills to be paid and not rich. I mean, when you are above average national income, you definitely have to pay around, you still have to pay a little bit of tax income. For example, if you your salary is more than 5,000, you still have to pay a few percentage tax income. And we already told you that we are giving them some incentive by reducing the amount of tax income they have to pay. And plus, when they pay a little bit more for school fees, this money would be rolled back into improving the situation at school which their children are attending. So it's not like they are getting anything back from this. It's a win-win situation, Madam Speaker. And next up, they talk about discrimination and how one side, one party will rise or whatever, and that this idea that we are bringing forth is discrimination to people and discrimination to poor, to rich people or middle income people. But Madam Chair, I tell you that in Malaysia itself we have positive discrimination, and we have positive discrimination. Why? Because we want to give positive discrimination is giving some benefit to people who are in a bad situation, who are deprived. For example, our example will be people who are of lower income, who probably make 1,000 or 2,000, have a lot of kids. And why not give them a little bit of positive discrimination by lessening their burden, reducing the amount of fees to the point of maybe just paying a little bit for tabung PIBG or whatever, and they don't really have to pay a lot for their children, and this itself will be helpful for them. Their children goes to school, and they might do well, they might really do well in their school, gets to go to university without barely having to pay much throughout their education, and then they can contribute to helping their parents. And this inevitably will definitely help our government. A little bit of positive discrimination will not kill our government. I don't see people thinking that our government is bad because we just want to help the poor people. How does that make our government bad? Okay, yes, please.
You want to help the poor people. We see to the fact that these poor people should be helped, but you are actually putting a lot more burden to these people that you so-called rich.
Okay, thank you. What is 100, 200 ringgit such a big? Is it a really big burden for people who make 5,000, 6,000 per month? I mean, it speaks for itself. Just a little bit. You only pay fees for school once a year. You're not paying it every month or something when you go to a national school. How does this burn a hole in your pocket? I mean, it only affects a little bit. And with that, I want to go to my point about what we want to find, how we want to justify equality. And equality in itself has a subjective definition, Madam Chair. I mean, you can define it as you take something and dividing it equally among everyone, as in the form of communism and socialist ideas. Or you can take something and divide it people according to their needs. And what we want to do is to divide this financial situation to people according to their needs. And what we want is to maximize free education or really almost free education and to help poor people so that they can send their kids without worrying about having to pay a few hundred for fees, without having to worry about textbooks and all. And also, like I said before, the money collected from the people who have above average income would be money that they are collected from them paying fees will roll back into helping the school and its poor students and the wealthier students who can still benefit from the improvement given to the school and their friends. And the situation in schools will be much more happier and productive when the money rolls back and the school can afford to buy better chairs or give them better, I don't know, LCD or something. And rich people wouldn't stand to lose anything. As a stakeholder, what they get from this is that they are being charitable and they still get added benefit in terms of, as we have told you, a little less income tax, and their kids who go to national school still get improvement. My next point would be a better flow to financial situation and transparency. Here, the benefit goes to the government. In terms of people, who, the citizen will be able to see improvement right away in terms of national schools having better improvement. In fact, some of the money that goes into paying school fees can be full back into the government, and maybe the government can put in more money in terms of education and getting better teachers. And everyday people can't deny that the government will make an improvement and to their kids who goes to national school. And the example will be the money would for itself. The money would speak for itself when you get when they pay a little bit more fees. Then richer people will pay a little bit more fees. The money will speak for itself when they see improvement in the school where their kids go to. With that, thank you.
Thank you to the Prime Minister. You can give the case inside of opposition. Okay.
Madam Chair, we believe in the name of justice, the equality in education is a must. We believe that the equality in education is actually not only from the primary school to the secondary school and also the tertiary education. We believe that the free education is actually for the long term, from the primary school until the tertiary education and whatnot. But in this debate, they only scope down in national school, which is the primary and the secondary school. So basically, before I started, I would like to debate some point from the government side, which they said that the nationality and they actually related this topic with the limited resources. I
question to them, what is actually the limited, how is it actually the limited resources has something to do with the free education. We know that limited resources has nothing to do with this, and because of this, why is it actually limited resources? It's actually affecting the educational system, because we think that the educational, because of the limited resources, does not affect the education at all, because we believe that the limited resources actually only affecting the economy. And how is it actually economy is actually revolving is because of the buy and purchase and whatnot, and it's not solely because of the education. And we can see no relation at all between the limited resources and also the education. And they also said about the what is that they did not really specify to us what is actually income average. They did not really define to us what is actually the meaning of the income average, and they just say that if the people is rich enough and they have to pay for the school fees and whatnot. So the free education, they scoped down the free education in Malaysia, and they said about the national school. And later on in the Prime Minister's speech, she said that the Prime Minister, she also said about the private and also public school, which we believe that this is not thing to be discussed in this debate, because we believe that the private and also the public school is not a matter of thing, because you know that public and private schools is actually up to the option of the rich people. If they want to go for the private school, so they have the option to do so because they have the money. So the problem with us today, because they open the case in the national school, and we believe that national school is actually for everybody. It is not actually discriminating the people whether they are rich enough or they are actually middle class. So we believe that the national school is actually for all people, and even the notion the free education there is actually for the rich people as well. So we don't want, because at the end of the day we don't want the different inequality has to be divided between the rich and also the poor people. And the Deputy Prime Minister said that, sit down first, the school fee is not that much. So how is it the school fees is not that much? So because we know that the government can cater all the problems that arose in this debate, because they mentioned about the limited resources. That a question to them, why is actually limited resources has something to do with this debate. So they said that the school fees isn't that much, and the rich people has to pay for it. And we want to rebut this by saying that the school fees is not that much, and therefore the government has to can afford this thing. So there's actually no problem from the government side to actually cater the problem in the education. Yes.
Under status quo, we already see that there already has been discrimination between these poor people and rich people. So what's wrong with discriminating this kind of education to these people?
So what's actually the first thing actually, why we want to discriminate the rich people in this education? And we know that does not affect rich people, because in her speech she said that she actually wanted the rich people to pay for the fees for the school fee, because it's kind of like charity person. It's kind of like charity work, and we see that charity work is actually not a duty from the rich people, because we believe that once we make this from the free education and we want the rich people to actually pay for this, we actually jeopardizing the right of the rich people. And the rich people actually there in the school, the guardian of the students need to pay for the fees because of the charity, and the purpose of education is therefore is not cheap, because the rich people is only to support the education. Sit down. So moving on to my substantive, the first point I would like to say about the purpose of education might be undermined in this case, because why is that? Because the purpose of education is actually because we want to give the education to all people. How is it the education? Because we want to give the learn and also the lesson to all students regardless their economic status. Because we believe that at the end of the day, the education is actually for all people, and the education is actually something that's sacred, and all people have to actually go for it. And why is it national school is there at the first place? Because national school is actually to promote and to give all education to all people. It's actually not if the rich people is afford enough and they have the option to go to the private school, but then they go to the national school because they believe that national school will give them more thing, because actually the national school is actually we combine all the rich people and also the poor people. So it's actually we know that these things might affect the society levels and whatnot. So when the purpose of education, we might say that this purpose of education is not achieved because under the status quo, they said that the rich people is there in order to support the school. So the rich people is there is only to support the school. So we think at the end of the day, the purpose of education is not achieved because we believe that the purpose of education is actually for all. And second thing, I would like substantive. I would like to say that government afford enough to cater the education, which is same for the rebuttal just now, which I said that first, the circulation of money happen in other field as well. So it is not actually the fault of education because we want to stop to give the free education to all people. So it is actually not the education is not at the fault because you know that government is actually afford enough to cater all the problems. So it is actually not the good governance if we take something that is actually free at the first place. So how is it we want to attack the status quo? Because status quo nowadays is doing fine. So our objective today, because we want to give equality in education, because we believe that free education is for all and not only for the poor people and also the middle class people. And education is actually the state of process, and it is actually not fair if we discriminate the others, right, because of the limited resources economy which the government side has actually proposed in this debate, and is not relevant at all to relate the limited resources with the education. With that, I beg to propose. Oppose.
Alright, any bill to close the case with the government, or to invite them.
Madam Speaker, from what the side government want is that we do not want to provide free education towards this group of people who have an above national average of income. So we believe that when from what Huchi has been mentioned clearly is that we do not want to provide this free education towards those people when they want to send their kids towards this national school. But we don't have any problem if they want to send their kids to this private institution. We clearly do not have any problem with that to begin with. And then secondly, under both my speakers' speech, I already mentioned to you on why it is justified for these people to be not given this kind of free access to this education. So I'm going to talk to you in today's debate. There are three things I will talk to you. Firstly, on the idea of equality and also discrimination. Secondly, on the right of the stakeholder in the country. And thirdly, on the education system itself. But before that, some rebuttals, Madam Speaker. So from the side of opposition, what they're trying to say is that by imposing this kind of thing, the government is not giving. The government is discriminating towards this group of people. But from my QI just now, I really asked them that under current status quo, we already have this kind of discrimination between the poor and the rich people. So what's wrong when you discriminate towards this education? Because from my first and second speaker they already told you that there's nothing wrong with these people if they opt to go towards this private institution. So we don't have anything. The problem is that when these people want to send their kids towards this public institution, we're just gonna ask them to pay for this education system. And then secondly,
on my POI whereby what's wrong when this positive discrimination could boost the economic system. They didn't engage with this point where speaker, because what they are trying to tell you is that because of this, even if they have positive discrimination, we should not allow this kind of discrimination. So under their paradigm is that they are saying that the government should be equal towards all, towards these people, and not having this sort of discrimination, and create a harmonious country. But we believe that under status quo that this kind of positive discrimination is really necessary, because firstly it could boost the economic system in the terms of education system to begin with, Mr. Speaker. And then they also mentioned that that we do not justify on why we take this right of free education towards these people, but we did tell you clearly in both my two speakers' speech on why we should take this right way. Because firstly, we believe that by taking this privilege away, it will link back towards those resources, Madam Speaker. Because we believe that how is the government is providing free education? Firstly, from the tax monies payer. So from this tax monies payer, we believe that both poor and rich people need to pay tax. But the amount of tax paid by these rich people are slightly higher in comparison towards these low people income. So we believe that because we see that this group of people who have above national average, they could clearly provide. We are not to say that they can have a luxury life. They can have a comfortable life in providing those facilities that they need in help. So why not we ask them to pay this one, and in return we already clearly tell you that we're going to reduce the number of income tax that they need to pay at the end of the day. So finish my rebuttal. So firstly, on the idea of equality and discrimination itself, what the side of opposition need to understand is the purpose of having this positive discrimination. Positive discrimination is when you have this sort of discrimination that will give benefit, that you are discriminating some group of people, you conceive that they are weak in some sort of way, and then you give help towards them. So this is what we call as positive discrimination. So we believe that these people who have income above national average, they have the upper hand in the terms of economic, whereby they can afford to buy this and that. So when we see, so because of this, we believe that this kind of positive discrimination is needed. Say for example, on the Malay right itself, Madam Speaker, we believe that Malay is being positively discriminated by the government. Because why? Firstly, we see that the economy of these Malay people are quite low in comparison with the Chinese and the Indians to begin with. So we believe that because of this, the government are giving facilities, are providing help towards such as they can have a position in the ASB and so on. So because of it, we see that this positive discrimination is currently helping this Malay to improve their social life to begin with. So it goes the same with the idea of free education. So this group of people are being discriminated, as we see they are now sit down. They can already provide luxury, they can already provide necessary benefit, that necessary things that they want in their life. So because of this, we want them to pay for this education when they want to go for public school. Secondly, on the idea of education system itself, Madam Speaker, I've already told you, like what the question is that how limited resources is affected to this education system. Simply because of the taxpayers' money to begin with. We believe that because of this taxpayer money, we believe that because of this taxpayers' money, it will channel resources towards this education system so that the government can provide free education towards these people who sit down. So we believe that because of this money that being needed to channel in this kind of free education, we believe that it is some sort of boost towards the economy to begin with. Because why, Madam Speaker? We believe that when the rich people are paying for their education in the national school, the money is not being channeled towards the teacher or so on. It's being channeled back to the school itself, whereby it will give the money is being used to buy new facilities to provide a better education and also better environment for these students at the end of the day. So when you provide better environment at the end of the day, you can provide better students with better results, which in the later future they can already get a better job in order to boost the economic system. So it's a win-win situation in this problem, whereby when you have this kind of thing, they can give back towards the government. So thirdly, on the idea of the right of stakeholder, why we think that the government have more input in this matter? Because firstly of the societal contract, Mr. Speaker, and then secondly, we think that this government provide these facilities towards the people in general. So because I would like to propose a motion.
Okay, we will break to please present opposition. Opposition.
Madam Speaker, we believe in the name of justice, where we believe that equality and to preserve that every people's right to get this free education that the government provides, and that without being discriminated, Madam Speaker. That's our main objective, Madam Speaker. And first of all, let me mention back again the questions that the government did not clarify, Madam Speaker. First of all, they never explain to us the actual urgency of actually taking away this privilege from households with with income above the national average, Madam Speaker. First of all, let us look at this, Madam Speaker. The dire problem that they mentioned is earlier, that they want to, their concern is for the poor, Madam Speaker. Not that but to begin with, Madam Speaker, the current status quo already solved this problem, Madam Speaker. They already provide free education for the poor, Madam Speaker, if there's such a dire situation, Madam Speaker. And first of all, talking about second of all, when we talk about the limited resources, Madam Speaker, let me explain this to you, Madam Speaker. Free education applies in countries which are with good governance, Madam Speaker. That's the current status quo, Madam Speaker. And when we talk about that, Madam Speaker, like my second speaker has mentioned earlier, Madam Speaker, when we talk about that, it's important to note that these countries are capable of, are financially capable and economically capable of actually solving this, of actually providing free education, Madam Speaker. So there, in conclusion, there is actually no dire need for this, Madam Speaker. And next thing is, how can they prove that these people, just because the income is above average, can really support their household education, Madam Speaker? Their answer was that, Madam Speaker, their answer was that these people are actually, because of their income above the national average, Madam Speaker, that suddenly, immediately labels them as rich people, Madam Speaker. Like my leader of opposition has mentioned earlier, Madam Speaker, when we talk about the circumstances of the household, Madam Speaker, not everybody who are above average, Madam Speaker. The minority group in this larger group, Madam Speaker, is that the minority group are actually ones that are really, really rich with that in this bigger group. In another case, Madam Speaker, most of the people who are actually above the national average, Madam Speaker, are just normal people, middle class working people, Madam Speaker, blue collar professional, blue collar workers, Madam Speaker, and sometimes in the classes white collars, Madam Speaker. But Madam Speaker, this actually doesn't solve any. It's actually how is this positive discrimination actually good, Madam Speaker, when there are circumstances where these households are for single income family, Madam Speaker, and for a large family, Madam Speaker. And also when you talk about how rural area are actually focusing on rural areas, Madam Speaker, but when in this case, Madam Speaker, what about the people with who living in places with high cost of living, Madam Speaker? In KL, you can't live with just a $5,000, $6,000 income and pay for your school fees, Madam Speaker. What about these kind of people, Madam Speaker? We can't just discriminate. First of all, you're just discriminating the poor and the rich, and now you're discriminating people who live in the rural area and people who live in the city, Madam Speaker. The circumstances are always different, Madam Speaker. They never clarify what will happen to people in the circumstances when you question them earlier, Madam Speaker. Sit down first.
And next thing, Madam Speaker, what would be the responses of the people? One also has questioned them about this, Madam Speaker. She questioned them. There would be unjustified discrimination, Madam Speaker. Like I mentioned earlier, Madam Speaker, when you take a privilege from someone, Madam Speaker, there will always cause a rise of protest, Madam Speaker. Now, moving on, I will talk about the three main issues that have been running throughout the debate, Madam Speaker. But first of all, let's talk about equality, Madam Speaker. Okay, when we talk about equality, the government defines equality as giving this free education to only those who need because they need it. That's what they define as equality, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, what we define as equality, Madam Speaker, is that when everyone gets these equal rights, Madam Speaker. When the government they talk about positive discrimination, Madam Speaker, when they talk about this positive discrimination, saying that those with higher income, Madam Speaker, has to pay for school fees, and saying that they will get back by getting good better facilities, Madam Speaker, but it's also a benefit for the poor, Madam Speaker. How is it where is the balance in this, Madam Speaker? How is discrimination in this context actually a good thing, Madam Speaker? When we talk about positive discrimination, Madam Speaker, it should be giving benefits